Hello, everyone, and glad to have you here again on a new educational webinar that we are presenting today. We are going to talk in this edition about a quite hot topic in the Web3 space, that of blockchain interoperability. And I have here with me Gal and Alex from deBridge, who are, I think, way better equipped to talk about these subjects. Even though Bware Labs and Blast are multi-chain platforms, and we are in partnership with a lot of blockchains and new projects, we've been also working very closely with deBridge for about 2 years now, and I cannot think about anyone that would be better suited to tackle this subject. Today, we're going to try to provide very useful information and go to the bottom of what interoperability is, or at least what it should be. Before getting into that, I would like you guys to make a short presentation about yourself, like describing your professional experience, what is interesting to you about blockchain technology, and whatever else you think is relevant for our listeners to know.
Yeah, I can start. So, hello everyone. My name is Alex. I'm CEO and co-founder in deBridge. I'm a technical person myself. I'm developer. My background is mainly in math and mechanics. I was doing PhD in the area of satellite and inertial navigation before I got into crypto. Just like back in 2016, I found out about BitShares. It was like one of the first, I would say, technologies I started to learn about and like got super fascinated by the blockchain tech in general. Then, like within BitShares community, I was helping with some sort of developments for different projects and teams, and then also found out about like Steemit, which used to be like the very first social network based on Steam blockchain, which was like super exciting because like back then I was like living in a dormitory of my university, like getting like $100 scholarship per month. And then on Steam, I just published some article about like popular science. And in Steam, it works in a way that like if some whale with big stake upvotes or like likes your article, you get a payout from inflation in Steam token. And it's just like some random whale like my post, and I got like more than $1,000 payout for the article I spent like 4 hours on. It was like super, exciting and incredible. And I realized like, look, guys, I'm doing something wrong. Like, I should not do that much science and math. I should like dive into blockchain deeper. And that's how it all started. I started to be active in like Steemit community. And actually the moment I got into crypto is sort of memorized in the blockchain in Steam itself. And like some of our team members recently sent me a link like, look, here's the transaction where you like that you can use it as a confirmation on the date when you first like got into the blockchain space. Yeah, even though I got like maybe a few months before that, but like it's quite exciting because it's like a good example of how users are like onboarded and funneled to this space. And yes, and then I just like started to be super active within crypto community, started to develop more, help different teams, and in 2017 we formed the team with another deBridge co-founder Yaro, where we started to provide blockchain development services. And yeah, it was a long story, but like later on, back in 2020, we started to work on deBridge. But before we dive into that, yeah, Gal, tell us your story as well.
Yeah, it also for me started quite organically, but yeah, leading BD and ecosystem for deBridge, making sure we grow from a position of strength. But yeah, for me, around 2016 is when it started for me. Actually a bit earlier, where I was a bit of a gaming nerd back then, had a nice gaming PC, and I was fascinated by the idea that I could just generate these Doge coins from my computer. It was yeah, so it started like that. It was just a curiosity, and then started to dive a bit deep into it during my studies. Meeting a lot of people in this space, getting to know people, learning about it. Even yeah, I met Alex back in 2018 in Singapore at the Binance event. I remember. Yeah, so that's how these relationships started to build, and everything snowballed, and now working on an incredible infrastructure.
Oh, it looks like you guys are real OGs. I don't know many people that started in 2016 and even before that. So I guess in crypto years that makes you like one of the uh, very senior guys of blockchain technology. Okay, thank you for your presentation. Now I'd like to start with a short presentation of your project of deBridge. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but to my understanding and working with you guys, deBridge presents itself as both a messaging protocol as well as a cross-chain interoperability platform that can be used by developers, builders to build cross-chain applications. I'd like to know more details about what that means and how deBridge helps people build applications cross-chain, because I'm a big fan of the cross-chain concept, and I think that's what's required for the Web3 to actually get traction. So really interested to see how you guys are seeing this and how you tackle it.
Yeah, so we are basically solving the problem of interoperability, right? Because it's been super challenging, especially taking into account all the security incidents and hacks that have been happening in this space. And our goal is to enable high performance and secure interoperability, right? And deBridge, we started to work on the project early 2021. Like the team participated in the Chainlink Global Hackathon, and we won it among like more than 140 teams worldwide. And yeah, after winning the hackathon, we just like got a lot of attention from the community and various VCs. And yeah, we started to work on bridging infrastructure even before everybody started to talk about bridges, before it became a mainstream. But yeah, like from the very beginning, we've been focused on solving the interoperability challenge because in general, like this problem globally consists of three main verticals, right? And we are probably the only team that is trying to differentiate all these verticals instead of solving them simultaneously. And the first one that is quite important, the asset custody, right? When we have the asset in one chain, we should have the synthetic representation, or we may need to have the synthetic representation of this asset on another. And like in ideal scenarios, like asset custody should be enabled by canonical bridges, such as like Arbitrum bridge or Optimism bridge, which can be trust minimized, right? They can be trustless, meaning that they don't like introduce any additional trust assumptions and they don't need to have like additional validation layer. But like with classical sort of trustless interoperability solution, the problem is that they're not scalable. They mainly interconnect on the two blockchain ecosystems, let's say layer one and layer two. Or the custody is also like, you should think about this as about like who is in charge of the issuance of the asset. Because when we have native USDC on different chains, we have like Circle as a native custodian who is in charge of like issuance of these assets. But in many cases, like native custody is not available because there are some layer ones that are not like interconnected with Ethereum. And in this case, we should solve the asset custody challenge. And in deBridge, we have like this sort of framework, which is called MMA, that we proposed to Uniswap governance at the beginning of this year, which allows like to aggregate multiple infrastructures in order to avoid any infrastructure dependency and make asset custody to be way more secure. So yeah, asset custody is like the first challenge on how you like create or mint the asset on another chain. And second vertical, which is super important, is the transfer of cross-chain message or authenticated data, where you need to, let's say, interconnect two smart contracts on different chains and allow them to exchange information. But it's very important to like emphasize here that the word message assumes authentication, that the receiver should know who was the sender, right? It's like sending a message on Telegram. When we receive the message from someone, we can identify the person using the handle, right, the Telegram ID. So same with the cross-chain space. When smart contract receive the message, it should be able to understand like the address of the sender and the chain ID. And that's what we are solving with deBridge. So from the very beginning, deBridge has been a cross-chain messaging infrastructure. And our focus is a high performance interoperability because we have quite unique design where we can process like basically unlimited number of messages per second, because we have like off-chain validation layer, right, where our validators don't need to broadcast any transactions. They just produce cryptographic signatures using which anyone can deliver or execute the message on the destination chain. And this is also like messaging is one of the pillars or like foundation of the interoperability. But messaging itself is not sufficient because like the whole DeFi space is built on principles of composable liquidity. Like people or projects don't need to transfer data only. Mainly everyone needs to transfer liquidity and data, or even like purely liquidity. And for this one, for like cross-chain trading or value transfers, we have a third vertical and the third solution. Yeah, Gal, maybe you can tell a bit more of how we are solving this.
Yeah, so that's what DLN is for. So that's like our flagship product probably has the most unique approach for value transfers. So the idea of value transfers is moving an asset that already exists on one chain and trading it for or exchanging it for an asset that's already existing on another chain in the most fastest and cheapest way possible. And that's what DLN is solving with its high performance aspects. And we realized just from a high level, like if we look at the whole DeFi space right now and the liquidity fragmentation issue, we see that every ecosystem is isolated from each other, and this creates a lot of bottlenecks and friction when it comes to user onboarding, liquidity onboarding, etc., etc. And that's what DLN is really solving for, creating essentially this global liquidity engine where it doesn't matter where the user is, there's always liquidity on demand and accessible from somewhere. So we're creating this because we see this issue, and we notice the biggest bottleneck is the aspect of liquidity pools, or where the price discovery happens on chain. And instead we're taking this completely different approach, like Alex hinted, where we're taking like an off-chain matching where the settlement happens on chain. So it's like an off-chain order book with on-chain settlement. And it's essentially, the beauty of it is that it's a completely zero TVL approach where there's no passively locked liquidity. And it's really good because it comes with a lot of nice benefits, such as exact output on the destination chain, zero slippage, near instant settlement, and much more secure and scalable. So secure because the attack surface layer is minimized, the risk is taken off, these multi-million-dollar liquidity pools that we've seen, like all these bridge hacks happen over time, and more scalable because with liquidity pool-based models, as you get close to the size of a liquidity pool when it comes to order sizes, the exponential increase of slippage happens, and that's not really favorable for like capital efficiency, right? So with us, there's no limitation because liquidity is very capital efficient, and we're not capped to the size of a liquidity pool. And yeah, because of that, we've had a lot of institutional interest, and I can touch a bit later on that in terms of alpha. Yeah.
Just to make it clear for our listeners, I would like to ask who are the providers of liquidity in the case of DLN, and how is it done?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So we, like in deBridge, we are shifting the paradigm from liquidity pool based model to liquidity in time or liquidity on demand approach. So you can think about DLN as about a cross-chain order book of intents, right? Intent is sort of novel narrative in the crypto where you're not just initiating transaction. You're creating like intent of what you want to achieve, like what you want to do. Let's say you want to trade 100 USDC on Polygon for 99 USDC on Solana, right? And you create this intent and you wait until there is someone who is willing to fulfill your intent. So intent is basically a limit order. And in our case, users are creating these intents or limit orders on DLN infrastructure. And on another side, we have private market makers, right? Basically, anyone can be a market maker, like any liquidity owner. But these are parties that run the automated bots, and if they see that your limit order is profitable for them, they're incentivized to fulfill it as soon as possible. And the first one, who will provide you with, let's say, 99 USDC on Solana, will be able to send a cross-chain message to unlock 100 USDC in Polygon and earn this spread of 1 USDC in this example. And there are a few big advantages here. First, that is just-in-time liquidity, right? You don't need to incentivize market makers continuously in time, like all the classical bridges are doing. Because like everybody, like all the technology that are building based on liquidity pool are got to pay interest to LPs. And at this market, interests are super high because imagine that US treasuries are paying 5.5% now per year, right? And bridge is like super risky venture, especially in taking into account all the security risks. Like LPs would be needed to pay more than 15% per year at least. And the capital is not used efficiently because classical bridges based on pools are distributing these incentives continuously in time when transfers, in fact, are happening discretely, right? And you can have a time period when there are no transfers at all, but you still got to distribute incentives. And we're changing this model drastically. We're introducing this sort of P2P approach with the order book of intents, where market makers provide this just-in-time liquidity, and they're just-in-time incentivized as well directly from the spread of the limit order. And if you want to additionally incentivize them, we can also do, and we can do that like deterministically, because we just rebate the spread. So let's say the spread was like 0.1%, then we can just distribute incentives based on the volume that was settled by the specific market maker. And that makes incentivization way more efficient. And we even like suggested the but sort of more efficient incentivization program for Optimism community and got this grant approved by their grant committee, because this allows to make cost of transfer of liquidity to and from ecosystem to be nearly zero, right? And that creates like big incentive for builders and users to like leverage this ecosystem because it facilitates onboarding of the end users. So yeah, this is like how's designed in our case through this zero TVA design.
Oh, this is like actually really interesting. I wonder, I mean, this looks like the way it should be done actually. It's even tackling a security issue by working directly at the motivation of possible attacker, because if there's no liquidity pools, there's less motivation to do anything. And also it seems like the next step forward in interoperability, like having order books and just-in-time liquidity, that seems like the and now I'm wondering why why doesn't everyone do it? Like
At
why
some point,
do
but liquidity like will be already there, because we already see market makers on DLM fulfilling 6 and 7 figure trades. And the interesting thing here is that the price discovery happens off chain, like no AMM models involved, no order books. Because if there is any systemic risk that is happening in any of the supported ecosystems, then the asset, let's say USDC on that ecosystem, let's say Phantom, can be traded with a decent discount to USDC on another chain. So we allow to create an open market between any two arbitrary assets that are deployed on any two different blockchains, right? With the fair price discovery. And this price discovery mechanism can efficiently take into account like any risks that may arise. And that's not something that would be possible with AMM models or liquidity pools.
yeah, totally makes sense. Okay, thank you guys. That was very educational for me. Uh, Now I'll have another question. We've seen that and even discussed earlier that there's a quite wide range of projects or platforms that are trying to provide the cross-chain solutions or bridging solutions to builders out there, and we can see that some of them are decentralized, others are less decentralized. And I wanted to get your feeling about decentralization when it comes to cross-chain, to the cross-chain concept. How important would you say decentralization is, and what would be the advantages of it compared to a solution that is fully controlled?
Yeah, Gal, would you like to start? And I can add or
Yeah, so like from the foundations, we're like in terms of our architecture, there's different aspects to it, but decentralization's probably more important than even just as important as like the decentralization of a layer one, because it's the settlement layer between chains. So from the foundations, we're taking this much more from the way capital is handled. We're taking a more decentralized approach because we see that just the fact that a few smart contracts are holding multi-million dollars in liquidity, that's a form of centralization. That's why we're taking this peer-to-peer approach where makers and takers, like order creators and the counterparty, they're completely, non-custodial. They don't have to, passively lock their liquidity anywhere. It's just when they need to create an order and fulfill an order, and that's it. And since we're like non-canonical, we require a validation layer to sign every message. So we have validators who are signing every message, making sure that it's being authenticated. And yeah, those are my main points on that. I think Alex has some insight too.
yeah, because here it's also important to differentiate like canonical bridges from interoperability solutions or so-called non-canonical bridges. Because like people are using the word bridge, but this word is super confusing, right? Because as I mentioned, there are three verticals: asset custody, messaging, and cross-chain trading. And they all are called bridge, right? Even though like they should be sold in a very different way. So the decentralization is really important like for messaging, right? And for like asset custody. But like in general, everything has been built on top of messaging, right? And the non-canonical bridges cannot be fully trust minimized, right? They cannot avoid trust assumptions. So meaning that they cannot avoid the validation layer. There got to be some participants that create consensus, that these participants are validators, but like some teams are calling them oracles and relayers, some are calling them guardians, but in fact these are some entities, right, or people who are in charge of validation. That's why one of the main vertical to compare cross-chain interoperability solutions or messaging layers is by comparing of like how their validation layer is designed. And of course, decentralization is one of the most important aspects of it. And in deBridge, we are trying to build the infrastructure that is like truly decentralized, not only in terms of validation, but also in terms of governance, like how protocol and infrastructure will be governed and controlled, right? And here, like we have quite unique design of the validation layer. So right now we have 12 validators, which we assigned to bootstrap the infrastructure based on their performance in the testnet that we had back in 2021. But the fact, like the idea that the governance, like future token holders, will be able to decide on how many validators infrastructure should have, and second, who should be validators, right? And moreover, on top of like increasing the number of validators, we're also doing different steps in terms of increasing decentralization. So one of the interesting ones is that deBridge is probably the only infrastructure that announced delegated staking and slashing. So validators will pose financial guarantees. They will have a stake, right? And that stake will act as an insurance. And the interesting thing that this is not like proof of stake. It's not a stake that is sort of posed in governance token. It's a stake that is posed in liquid assets such as ETH and USDC, right? Because as soon as validators start to receive part of the protocol fees, they will also start bearing financial guarantees and financial risks, right? And the main assumption that deBridge like users and integrators will be bearing is that validators will never collude, right? That at least 2/3 will not like decide to sign some forged message. But in fact, like any sort of attempt to forge is guaranteed, it's insured, right? And if the total stake of validators is, let's say, $40 million, then if you're a user and you're sending a cross-chain message, you just need to be sure that the value of your message does not exceed $40 million, right? Because you know that it's always insured by the collateral. of validators. And if your value of the message is bigger, you just split it into multiple messages to be sure that each one is insured. So that's how like decentralization is enabled. Moreover, on top of proposing financial guarantees, we're also exploring ways to sort of integrate or combine our validation layer with state proofs or storage proofs that are developed by teams like Herodotus and Lagrange, because for some chains, for some specific directions, you can pass message, and you can also require to validate existence of the message in the source chain by proposing or like posting the ZK proof, right? It will not be available for like any to any direction, but that's something that will be available for some specific directions. And that's quite cool because like that allows even to increase increase security even further. And I'm personally quite excited about this, like state and storage proofs that provide like even better level of the decentralization. And we actually just posted an interesting article where we sort of outlined all the steps of how we are ensuring decentralization of deBridge infrastructure. Because like we've been super surprised that like layer 0 have two validators like Oracle and Relayer, and they just replaced one of the validators with Google, which is like centralized entity, like US corporation, right? So basically anyone who's using like their default validation settings are bearing the risk of being censored, right? Or being forged by like the company. And I think that like decentralization is super important because now if you take a look into the like overall token distribution or cap tables of the cross-chain infrastructures, there are no many candidates to have truly decentralized governance, right? And there is no candidate to be Ethereum in terms of like decentralization if you compare Ethereum to all the other layer ones. And our goal in deBridge is to create like technology that would be like as decentralized as the most decentralized layer ones.
Oh, that's a very thorough explanation, and I totally get it. So I didn't even know about the GCP Layer 0 collaboration, but you guys seem to be thinking about all the important aspects of interoperability and even keeping the Web3 mantra alive rather than just doing partnerships. Okay, great. So let's talk about what you guys are working on at the moment and what are the plans for the future. I know you just announced a couple of integrations. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, and then if you feel like giving away some of your future plans or even some alphas, that would be awesome.
Yeah, maybe I can bring some light to that. Yeah, so I think one of the highlights has been the Soulflow integration with MetaMask that we had recently, where MetaMask Snaps came out. It's been like a big push, a big like really big for EVM users to have different capabilities, and one of those is the ability to really seamlessly move assets from and interact with dApps on Solana directly from a MetaMask wallet, and that's what Soulflow has been pioneering in, and they chose us as the go-to bridge for MetaMask users into Solana, which is huge. Like MetaMask is 30 million, over 30 million users, and they really realized that they really liked how we're completely native to native, instant, very capital efficient, and so far we've been getting good feedback. Also, like the Jupiter bridge compare, we got featured on that too. And in terms of things in the near pipeline, so can't reveal too much, but like in terms of liquidity, we're getting to a point now where we've secured deals where we can easily fulfill like very large orders, and it's putting us in a position where we're ready to scale very strong. And also securing deals around like the areas that which are being underserved in cross chain, and what we really have the capability to serve. So things like payments, institutional capital, we're securing and discussing deals around that too. So like because we have exact output, instant cross-chain capabilities. Like that's gained a lot of interest from payment providers, and because we're not limited by scalability bottlenecks, we've also gotten a lot of interest from like institutions and OTC desks who want to do non-custodial trading. But yeah, maybe Alex, you could add some alpha around recent features.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I would like to mention what you, Gal, brought up, the ability to sort of power institutional trades, right? Because in DLN, when you create the limit order, you can optionally specify who should be a counterparty, like who should be your market maker, you know? And that allows to perform any non-custodial OTC deals. So if you want to exchange, I don't know, like $5 million of one of the token on one chain for some asset on another chain, you don't need to trust OTC providers anymore. You don't need to bear custodial risks. You just create a deal and limit order and you specify the address of the counterparty. And that also allows to create like fully compliant institutional infrastructure, you know, because like, let's say if you're a big VC fund and you do the trade, you don't want to have your trade settled through liquidity pool or settled by some unknown third party. You want to know who exactly you're dealing with. Right, and in this case, you can say, okay, I want to have like Wintermute to be my counterparty, or like Amber Group should settle this deal, and you will always know like that this specific liquidity that you get is coming from the well-known market maker or OTC provider. So that's the first thing. In terms of the secret features we are working on, actually with MetaMask release, we've already released some secret feature, which is like used by Software guys, and they're doing amazing job. So big shout out for them because like they're true innovators. And the feature is like that with DLN, you can not only do the trade, you can attach the call data or instruction that should be executed together with your trade. Because like normally when you move liquidity, you got to do something with the liquidity, right? You want to buy NFT or you want to supply this liquidity to Aave. And with DLM, you can specify optionally these instructions that should be executed so that when market maker fulfills your deal, he will also be obliged to execute this call data. And it's quite interesting, and it's like super powerful primitive that no one has done yet, because it allows to enable very high performant cross-chain interactions, right? Which abstract away the entire infrastructure stack. So user can just open the dApp, connect any wallet that he has, even like if the dApp is on Solana and user has like the MetaMask with liquidity on Polygon, user just does not need to think about this anymore. He connected the wallet, click one button, and in seconds he's getting his liquidity supplied on the Solana side. And as Gal mentioned, since we don't use AMM models or liquidity pools, we can also provide exact output. So if user wants to receive, let's say 100 USDC, he just specify this exact amount, right? And our infrastructure will automatically tell him like how much asset he should sell on the source chain to get exactly 100 USDC. And that's not something that is feasible with classical bridges based on liquidity pools. And this is also super cool use case for the cross-chain payments because, as you probably know, like Visa choosing Solana for the settlements because Solana has like the best finality to decentralization ratio. Like transactions on Solana are getting finalized within like seconds interval. And with cross-chain infrastructure such as DLN, this sort of use case can be combined very well because now any cross-chain payments can be also settled in seconds on Solana. So yeah, these are a couple of features that we are like super excited about, and many projects are integrating this functionality, so it's getting like really good adoption. And like moving forward, what we'll be doing is like first doubling down on decentralization, as I mentioned, and in this article that we published recently in our blog post, we mentioned all the points on like how we achieve like improve decentralization even further. Plus, we're preparing something for DLN v2, which will be even more capital efficient in terms of price discovery and like overall capital use. Because like in DLN, we don't need to have TVL, right? And having just like 5 million or like 10 million of total liquidity across all the market makers on all the chains, we can actually process hundreds of millions of dollars of trading volume per day. And that's not something that like other bridges would be able to do, because if you look at like TVL of, let's say, Stargate, they have like $386 million and the trading volume is like 35 million per day. And the interest that you should pay on this liquidity is quite high, because like market rates are high right now, especially for bridges. And in our case, we don't need like to lock this liquidity. So we are trying to build the economy that really works, and plus that can scale horizontally super efficiently. So yeah, these are some of the alpha alpha leaks for you guys.
Yeah, it definitely sounds exciting, like a lot of exciting times that are already happening, and a lot of things that seem to be coming for you guys. It's an amazing job. I have to admit, I was not that familiar with the solution, but right now I must say I'm quite impressed about what you guys managed to build at deBridge. And now, as we are coming up to the end of our webinar here today, I have one question that I usually ask everyone, because we've been talking with a lot of founders or industry experts, and I want to see if there's a pattern that in their opinions. So the question is like more philosophical or related to the broader space. I want to know from each of you, what do you think would be the key elements that are required for a Web3 to reach a point where we become mainstream in terms of adoption? Because in my opinion, we are still far from that. Or maybe do you think we are already there? If not, I would like to see some of the key elements that you guys think would be required for Web3 to become like mainstream. Anyone that uses social media, banking, to also use Web3 applications.
Yeah, I think at some points on this. So I think we're still quite far to where we could be. Like the technology is amazing, but there's so much more room. I think 2 points that I have that come to mind. So one is like the foundation. I think the foundation, building a strong, high throughput, high scalable solution and strong foundation is important to actually like open the doors and actually enable the ability to be scalable. And that's why we're taking, of course, like the zero TVL approach and making sure and being highly decentralized to make sure that we're prepared for that shift. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, I think, just improving the UX and the actual user experience of users interacting with Web3. And that's what Alex hinted in terms of one of our recent features is it doesn't matter where an application is deployed. Like they can deploy in Solana, they can, whatever suits them best, it doesn't matter. But you can still enable this whole global accessibility concept where it doesn't matter where a user is, they can interact, or it doesn't matter where their assets are, they can interact with an application in one click. And I think these kind of user experiences are what will enable, really like hyper scalability in the Web3 space.
It's nice. Like UX seems to be a motive that keeps coming around, and I fully agree with that. Like to me, it shouldn't be visible or for the user, for the end user, that the technology behind this blockchain or decentralized should be as easy as
I think it's,
using a mobile
just
app.
abstract all the complexities.
Yeah, but for that we need, exactly as you said, the entire infrastructure services behind. So make it easier for the app developers to do it. But let us hear Alex's opinion as well.
Yeah, I think we already have infrastructure, right? And we have like so many layer ones, we have so many layer twos. Now we finally managed to solve the interoperability challenge, in my opinion, because like infrastructure is live. And I think in deBridge we did a really great job in this regard, as being like one of the only infrastructure that never had any security problems or like disclosed vulnerabilities. Plus, we are like secure by design with this zero TVL approach. And I think that actually to enable like global adoption, it's time to focus on building apps instead of on building infrastructure, right? Because like infrastructure is quite like is quite ready, it's already in place. And now I'm really excited to see like what applications and projects will be built for like end users, like consumer applications, right? And Frantech like is a really great example. Like it's the first ever app that generates more revenue than the infrastructure on which it's been built, right? Because like the profit of Frantech is like bigger than the profit of base layer 2 itself. And it's quite exciting. And this like the examples that I want to see. And not only apps deployed like on one specific layer 2 or chain, but also like cross-chain apps, right? Where people or teams can innovate to bring more users into Web3. And I think this sort of paradigm shift is already happening and will be gradually seeing the process of like institutional organizations and like big social networks to be switching to Web3 infrastructure just because it's way more like efficient and transparent, right? And like you don't have any third-party bottlenecks. Here you can actually resolve any sort of technological challenges quite easily, and you don't need to ask permission to innovate. That's what excites me most. But yeah, we'll see. But I think that like it's a matter of a few years to get a new wave of like really big user adoption in Web3.
Okay, so basically the take is that right now we need to focus on the application layer of the Web3 technology, having a lot more applications that attract users and make revenue, rather than focusing on the underlying infrastructure that already is at a level that it
Yeah,
can be built on.
yeah, we like deBridge and Bware, we should focus on supporting teams who are building consumer apps, right? Because we already built infrastructure and we are doing this for a few years already. But like those who are starting to innovate and building something, I think should be focusing on applications. Probably it's already like a bit late to build sort of foundational infrastructure, right? Such as like blockchains or like layer twos. It's already in place, and very soon we'll see that like any roll up can be deployed in a matter of few clicks. But what really should be built is like the apps that get users excited, that make user to use this entire infrastructure and to use it in a way that they don't need to think about it. Like they don't need to think about blockchains. They don't need to think about bridges. They just interact like natively with the application, and all this sort of infrastructure interaction is happening under the hood in the background. Yeah, so that's what I foresee and looking forward to seeing with many apps. And yeah, just like Frantech is one of the examples, but I hope that we'll see many more in the near future.
I totally agree. Okay, guys, so thank you very much for accepting to join me today and provide a little bit of clarity to people about what you guys are doing and even more important about what interoperability means. I hope you guys had a good time. For me, it was very useful and I learned a lot. So, yeah, thank you for being here and hope to see you soon to the next conference when you are less busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for hosting us, Radu. Yeah, excited to work with Bware. And again, like big shout out to you guys because you've been like one of the early validators in
Thank you.
deBridge. So we'll tell everyone that like, look, Bware guys has been from the very beginning. And yeah, you're like, we really appreciate your strong support.
We're just happy to be able to be part a little bit of the journey. So, yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.